Blog Talk Radio.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pink Atheist. I'm your host, Rachel Johnson, and with me today is my co-host, Jimmy Williamson. Jimmy?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. We do have an exciting show for y'all today. We've got some people we're going to be talking to about the LGBT movement and marriage equality. We've got Matt from Mid-Ohio Atheist who's going to be on discussing his group and the things that they're doing. And, of course, as always, we'll have Ed on doing our Curiosity Update. But first of all, we've got Phil Ferguson on the line, and we're going to bring him on. Phil, are you there?
I am.
All right, welcome
Hi,
to the
Phil.
show.
Hello.
So welcome to the show. Glad to have you on with us today. I know that we wanted to go over a few things with you. You do the blog Skeptic Money.
I do indeed. SkepticMoney.com.
Wonderful. And you're also in with the Secular Student Alliance?
I am on the board of directors for the Secular Student Alliance, but I am not speaking in that capacity today, but I am on that board.
Sure, and we
Good.
understand that.
We would like to ask you, of course, maybe just comment on what the Secular Student Alliance is and what they're doing for those that may not know.
Certainly, I'd be delighted. The Secular Student Alliance is kind of an umbrella organization that is there to facilitate, assist, and help grow secular student groups. It started at local colleges, universities, and now they've branched out to high schools. So if you are listening to this podcast and you're in a high school or a college that doesn't have an affiliate group associated with the Secular Student Alliance, you could search them on the web and ask for a new group starting packet, and they will send you a whole bunch of stuff. They will help you meet with administrators of your college or university and help you get started a group, tell you how to find new members, and give you suggestions on all kinds of activities you can do to help make the world a better place.
Good. And I'm glad you
wonderful.
said that, because I've actually had some people ask how they could get started with Secular Student Alliance, and it is nice to be able to tell people how they could do that.
Well, it's an amazing thing because, 25 years ago, I guess, I was at the University of Illinois myself, and a friend of mine and I, we got together and we started an atheist club, and we met 2 or 3 times and just kind of stared at each other and said we agree in the same one not thing. Now what? There weren't really books like there are today. There weren't websites and blogs and cool podcasts like this. We didn't know what to do, and every time we put signs up, they all got ripped down and shredded, destroyed, burned, whatever. So we just kind of stopped. But now you have the internet, you have Facebook, you have blogs. You can find people, and people can find you, and the SSA helps facilitate that.
Right. And also the SSA, correct me if I'm wrong, is open to, the general students, regardless of their background or religious affiliation, simply if they are for a secular school. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's not how it generally works out in the groups, but anyone and everyone is welcome. The vast majority of the people that are motivated seem to be a little more interested in promoting a specifically non-religious worldview. But it officially is open to all those people.
All right,
That's
and then what else do you do? About your blog a little bit, if you would.
Sure, the blog is skepticmoney.com. Just put up a fun thing this morning. My daughter and I went out for Chinese last night, and I got to thinking about fortune cookies, and I thought, why has no religion ever made fortunes to go into fortune cookies? And we started thinking about what would be in those fortune cookies, And my daughter jokingly told me, and I'm surprised she knows this, but I guess in this modern world I'm not surprised, that after you read your fortune cookie, you're supposed to put "in bed" behind it. So I started thinking, what would some really clever religious fortune cookies be, and how would they be different? So, for example, Jesus will come again in bed. So right now I'm hosting a contest on my blog, skepticmoney.com, and for the next couple of weeks, you put your suggestions there, and after the suggestion period is over, I'm going to pick a winner, and that person will get a copy of Attack of the Theocrats by Sean Faircloth, and it is a signed copy that I happen to have in my office. So
wow.
They will get that. The top 5, my 5 favorites, I will incorporate them into my talk at Skepticon in the first weekend of November. So if they have their name on there, I'll also include their name and give them a mention to a crowd of 1,500 people.
That's awesome.
So just trying to have a little fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. While we had you on here, we did want to ask you what you think of this new Atheism Plus.
Yeah, and I like the idea of it, that there's no doubt about that. I think there perhaps has been some potentially misguided steps as far as its promotion.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few people that have promoted it with the idea that if you don't join, then there's something wrong with you, and that's not something I'm in favor of as a concept. But I like more groups. I think the more groups, the better, and those groups can function independently and separately and do their own thing and have different goals and agendas. And when it's really important for something like the Reason Rally, which my business, Polaris Financial Planning, is a sponsor of, the groups can come together when need be and have a stronger voice. And I think the Reason Rally had something like 12, 15, 20 different groups that all chipped in and helped. And that's amazing. That's teamwork that churches can't normally do. And we pulled that off, and I'm very flattered to be even barely involved in that, and I look forward to us doing it again in 4 years before the next election, and hopefully we have 100,000 people next time.
Yeah, and the only problem that I have with this new Atheism Plus is that when they did advertise it, they seem to be pointing at the old white men of the atheist movement and saying, you need to step aside. Now it's time for a more diverse group, and I really think that without those old white men having done such a tremendous job pushing the atheist movement forward, that we wouldn't be where we are today. So that really, struck me as odd that they wanted to point out Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins as nothing more than old white men trying to lead this movement.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that exact phraseology by anyone, but if you've seen it, then so be it. I don't think there's any problem with individual people, and I don't think if there is problems that there's a specific group, i.e. old white men, that are responsible. There may be some white men that have done things that are inappropriate or that other people find offensive. Well, in those specific cases, that person maybe should get a phone call, or you should greet them as a friend and give them a suggestion how they could do something better. One of the problems with blogs is that often bloggers get motivated by increased traffic to be a little extreme, a little inflammatory. If you're just kind of like, well, there's this side, and then there's this side, and then there's this side, and there's this side, that's not very entertaining to the reader. But if you pick a position, even if most of your readers disagree with you, they will read that, they'll get upset, they'll make comments, it drives traffic, and other bloggers will pick it up and explain why you're wrong. And so it's kind of this self-fulfilling thing. If atheist bloggers fight, it makes all their traffic goes up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the potential to go a little nutty.
Well, and the person who had actually advertised it like that is very popular in the atheist community, and they were actually a speaker at the last Reason Rally. And I don't want to obviously call her out, but because I did message her, and she never messaged back to, say if she'd come on the show or make any comment. But I just thought it was kind of odd and like a strike against the men who have been so productive in promoting, our movement. So,
well, I can't remember who said it first, and maybe one of you two know that we are, working on the shoulders of giants.
mm-hmm.
People like Dawkins and Hitchens are mortal men, and I'm sure they've made mistakes. But if it weren't for a lot of work that they did, it wouldn't be as easy for many people to be open and out and express their atheism to their friends, to their parents. And there is, right now, somewhere in America, a 16-year-old girl who is an atheist and is afraid to tell her parents because they will kick her out of her house and she will be homeless.
Mm-hmm.
But she knows in a year or two, when she gets out of the house and gets a job or goes to college, she can speak up and she can be a voice. And it's critical that men and women all be able to be involved and be able to express their voices so that the people around them see atheists out in the public and say, they're not really that bad.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. And I would like to see a lot more diversity in the atheism community. I'm just not willing to throw those people aside that have made the headway for us. I actually, have a lot of respect for them. So for me,
absolutely.
Atheism Plus would make more sense if it had turned towards a positive light and said, look, we just want to include more people and more diverse cultures and bring everybody together rather than this, it seems like, divisionary tactic, like you're either with us or you're against us, and then if you're against us, you obviously must be for rape culture. So. Well,
I think a few people have framed it that way, and that's tragically unfortunate because I think there is a potential for it to be wildly positive and helpful. I also think that some people, and I'm not sure that I'm one of them, but when you take the word atheism and add something to it, does that change what atheism in and of itself is? I mean, if it was called, the Good Luck Club, not because that name's already taken, but, something else and atheists were invited to join it, would it have been more palatable? Because some people fear that if you take our small body and split it, that you weaken us. But Atheist Alliance International was a spin-off of American Atheists, and it didn't go very nicely when it first happened. It was quite acrimonious, but now the groups get together and they cooperate, and both groups are bigger than they were 10 years ago, and it's a wonderful thing eventually.
Yeah, and I think it has the potential to be something good. I just wish that they would promote it in that light. So hopefully there's, hope for their future that they'll realize that and alter some of their promotion.
I think the key is for us all to kind of take a deep breath and recognize that the vast majority of people in the secular, atheist, agnostic, free thought movement mean well, and often we can just state something poorly and it gets misinterpreted. But if someone's gone too far, I would ask them to try to calm themselves down and let's all work together.
Absolutely.
And obviously, before we go any further, I would like to get you to comment about your Skepticon you were talking about earlier. You mentioned it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Skepticon is the largest free skeptical convention in the world. It is in Springfield, Missouri, and I think it's around the 7th to 9th of November. You'd have to check Skepticon.com for the exact dates, whatever that weekend is. I will be speaking there, and I will also be putting on a workshop on Friday. The Friday workshop is on investing, because my business is Polaris Financial Planning, and it actually underwrites the Skeptic Money blog. And one of the things I do is help people plan for retirement, so I will be giving a kind of an Investing 101 workshop for an hour, giving people suggestions how to invest and things to avoid getting ripped off, because a lot like psychics, sometimes financial advisors or brokers aren't necessarily working in your best interest. They're working in their best interest. So that's Friday. Saturday's talk will be primarily focused around the idea of helping children out of religion. And that probably puts me on the fringe, because not everybody thinks that's a good idea. I happen to think it is a good idea, and we need to fight fire with fire. And churches all around this country and in the city that I live in are going after little kids. They have kids ask their friends to come to church. They have vacation Bible school. The vast majority of preschools are religious. And so even if they only have you for 3rd and 4th grade or a 3 and 4-year-old and you go into kindergarten, they've got a 2-year chance to get inside your head and convince you that Jesus is real before you're old enough to even understand how that stuff works. So by helping arm adults, teens, young adults with ideas that they can share with their friends, with neighbors, with your friends' kids, nieces and nephews. And some of these ideas are something as simple as one of my nephews, I bought him the first Stargate movie. Because Stargate, the TV show, spent 10 years destroying false gods. So if he likes the movie and at some point looks into more episodes, maybe he goes down a path. So it doesn't have to be anything, extreme or over the top. Also recommend people buy kids magic tricks. Kids ages 7, 8 through 12 or 13 love magic tricks, and they learn that things aren't always what they seem. Optical illusion books. Kids are fascinated by that, and you can sit down and talk to them. One of the things we got were these little beads that you can make a friendship bracelet out of these beads, and they're all white in normal daylight, but when you put them under a black light or if you go outside in the sunlight, they change into 6 very vibrant colors. So my daughter had her entire cheerleading squad at our house for a party, and we went down into the basement, had the windows covered, and in the darkness, the black light on, they got to make special secret-coded friendship bracelets.
Oh, wow.
So they could see the colors when they made them, but when they wear them upstairs into the house lighting, or if they wear them to school, it just looks like white beads, but they know it's secret. Girls at that age love secrets and codes. And then they walk outside, and the beads light up in all these bright colors. And what do? They say, how does that work? So I have 12 and 13-year-old girls asking me about that, and I can explain the electromagnetic spectrum, ultraviolet light, different wavelengths, on a very basic level, but they leave with the idea of, that's awesome, I got to learn more about that. So when something comes up in their science class, they're primed and ready for it to be fun and exciting, not just drab and boring.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing.
So those are a few ideas of things that we've done and we try to do. And then I do more hard-hitting stuff. We had a couple of boys from the local high school came by a few weeks ago to talk to my son, and he was out. And I happened to answer the door in my Richard Dawkins Out campaign giant A shirt. And both of these young men have been in my house before, and they know I'm an atheist. I don't keep it secret. And the one kid says, oh, that's right, you're the atheist. And I said, yes, I am. And he says, isn't that really just another religion? And inside I'm screaming, are you stupid? that response doesn't build inquiry. So I said something along the lines of, well, that's a very thoughtful way of putting it. I think I can explain why that might not be the best way if you'd give me a few minutes. And he goes, sure, okay. That's what, do you boys want to stand out on the porch, or do you want to come inside where it's a little warmer? And I said, yeah, we'll come in. It was getting kind of late in the evening. And so they come inside, and we sat and had wonderful heart-to-heart talk about all kinds of things for over an hour. And it included some of the things about what's in the Bible and some of the misconceptions they have about life and reality, maybe things that they weren't necessarily comfortable talking to their parents about. And an adult that I knew said, weren't you scared that they would go back and tell their parents what you talked about atheism? And I said, a 16-year-old leaving my house and going, the first thing they go do is tell their parents that we had to talk about atheism? I don't see that being very likely. But when we were done, after an hour, the one kid goes, I always had questions, and now I've decided this is all just bull. It's just made up.
Wow.
And so I kind of have the philosophy that religious leaders say, give me a child till 8 or 10 and I'll have them for life. My response is, give me a kid for a couple of hours and I can show them things that'll get them to start thinking, and they quickly realize that religion is a fraud and a scam far better than a 40 or 50-year-old would. I could talk to someone for years and never make any headway, but you give me a curious 13-year-old, I can change their life in an hour or two.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful, actually, to know the right words to say, to know the right questions to answer, to help children think for themselves instead of relying on religion.
It is very tricky, and it's something that comes around from actively trying for years. So if you're kind of a shy violet and you've never really talked to anybody about religion, the idea of just talking to one of your kids' friends for an hour about religion would seem daunting. So it's something you build up to. It's not just something that just happens.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, Phil, we're going to talk to a few people we've got scheduled for the show. What I'd like to do is have you hold on the line, and perhaps we'll have some questions for you here in a few minutes.
Great. Well, thank you for having me on, and we'll see you at Skepticon.
We hope to.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Phil.
All right, we're going to go into, we've got a guest here, Matt from Mid-Ohio Atheist, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about Mid-Ohio Atheist. Matt, are you there?
Hi, yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, Matt.
All right,
I'm
Matt,
sorry?
No, thanks for being on the show.
Oh.
We talked about this. We like to promote our local groups and our what they do and their accomplishments and get their names out there so that people in your area that may not know you're there will hear about you.
Right.
Why don't you go ahead and real quick tell us about Mid-Ohio Atheist?
Right, so Mid-Ohio Atheist, we started, it originally started as three guys meeting for breakfast back in 2009, and unfortunately I wasn't one of those three, but fortunately I am part of the group now. Recently, in this February, we became incorporated, and we're committed to promoting secular viewpoints, positive atheism, civil rights, and a separation of church and state.
Excellent. And what kind of outings do y'all have? What do y'all do?
We try to do a variety of things, mostly for the society and ourselves to have a good time. Every month we have a meeting. It just recently moved to Saturdays instead of Sundays. I guess you could call it the Saturday before the second Sunday of every month. We have a meeting, and then we do things like donating our time and money to the communities, such as Harmony House, which is a homeless shelter, Domestic Violence Shelter Incorporated, the FOMP, which is Friends of Mansfield Parks, and we also adopted a highway. It's here in Ohio, of course, Interstate 71 between State Route 13 and State Route 97.
Interesting. And Rachel, do you have anything for it?
I was actually at the picnic with you guys this summer, and you guys seemed like a really wonderful group, and I actually made a couple friends out of the whole deal, and that for me is a great thing. And I know that you guys actually do some charity work as well, because you had a little bit of a contest for who brought the most, like, toilet paper and paper towels and stuff like that. Would you like to talk about that, what that was about?
Right. Well, we try to go the extra distance. See, most people when they donate for things like this, they always remember the canned goods or the things that'll last a long time. But we find that a lot of the times they'll forget papered goods are also very important for these places. They need those donations too. So we push a little contest to help promote the paper goods, and we only at this particular event we had only counted the paper goods towards winning the contest, and the winner got 2 tickets to a Sam Singleton show, and it's a way we can not just get donations, but get the donations that are needed for those who need it.
Yeah, and, like I said, I was there, and that's the great thing is knowing that there are other atheist groups here in Ohio. I know that there's a few more that we're going to be inviting on the show, but you guys were really wonderful, and that's why I wanted to give you a shout-out today on the show, because I think it would be great if your group grew, and you guys did a lot of wonderful things, especially here in Ohio, where we do have some pockets of really Republican and really religious people, so it's nice to see atheism spreading in my home state as well.
Yeah, Ohio is weird. It's like the disconnected belt buckle of the religious belt, and anyone who's lived any amount of time in Ohio knows it's like Ohio. There's nothing to do. There's usually drinking and cornfields or whatever you may have around your area. So I mean, there's really not anything to do. So we tried to do things like that, and we also have going back to drinking, we do have a pub crawl once a month. So we try to entertain that way, and we try to do fun things like we have the Halloween party coming up on October 27th, a costume party. And the 29th of this month, we're also doing an outing. We're going to make a trip to the Creationist Museum and, have a little fun, respectable fun, but go out and, laugh at the great Creationist Museum, and we're going to try to have a good time, make a good time out of it. So we try to do different events like that.
Yeah, and actually that's one of the things that I've wanted to do is go see the Creationist Museum, but I know that I would be kicked out after a few minutes of laughing at their displays. So
yeah, we're going to have to show some restraint, a lot of restraint, but I think the people that our group, we have a blast. It's everyone's very respectable, and we have a good time, and we won't interfere with anything. We shouldn't be getting kicked out and make local news or national news, but we want to go and check out the crazy. So.
Yeah, like I've always said, museums have fossils. The Creationist Museum has displays. So I give you guys credit for being able to walk in there and not laugh your way out. So at least that's better than I can do. Is there anything else you wanted to say about the group? I know that I've talked to Jason a lot since I've been down there, and him and his wife are very nice, and you guys were a great group to just hang out with for the day. So,
I just want to kind of name drop a little. I got our president, Ron Stevens, our vice president, Dren Workman, our director of communications, Mike Adams, and myself, Matt James. I'm the secretary for the whole as far as our officers go, and push out the website here, midohioatheist.org.
Okay.
There you can get our events calendar. You can contact us, see what we have in our library, our local library. We actually have books. There's a lot there you can go through and a lot to learn. Post a newsletter. We try to be very active. And also I'd like to mention our affiliates. We do a lot of endorsing for the Secular Coalition of America, and also the American Atheists. We keep in good contact with them, and also they have helped funded and helped support our billboard campaign that we posted this last summer.
Yeah, you guys did some really wonderful billboards last summer.
Oh, they came out really good. They looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
We're really happy with them.
And last week we had Blair Scott on, and we're looking up in the future to have Teresa McBain and possibly David Silverman too, so that would be nice.
Oh, yeah, that would be great if you guys could have them. They're great people.
Yes, they are, as well as you guys are at Mid-Ohio, and I'm really glad that I found your group and went to the picnic, and I wish you guys nothing but success, and I hope you grow to having 1,000 members. So
Oh, thank you so much, and it was great having you. And thanks again for having me on the show, and I look forward to having contact with you guys again in the future.
Absolutely. Please keep in contact with us, okay?
Will do.
All right. Thank you so much.
If you want to stay on the line, Matt, we may have questions for you, or people may want to talk to you here in a minute. So just hang on the line, and we'll take some more calls.
Sure, I can hang out.
All right.
All right, thanks.
All right, I guess we'll move right on into our curiosity update for the week. And for that, we normally bring on Ed. Ed, are you there?
I'm here, Jimmy.
All right. What do we have in store today?
Well, we're going to start with pretty much where we just left off last week. First, I'm going to just give a brief weather report. We have more data from the RIMS instrument that's mounted on the mast of Curiosity, and that's the Rover Environmental Monitoring Station, just essentially a weather station. This data is from the 14th of this month, or Sol 39, which is the way they designate a Martian day. Temperature-wise, the high was 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit, and you had a low of minus 99.4 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Atmospheric, yeah, really. But if you just move those temperatures up a bit, it's really like some deserts here on Earth, where you can get to about 120 degrees, let's say, in a desert here on Earth, and then at night it'll drop somewhere around 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So got some similarities there. On the atmospheric pressure, we went with 7.48 millibars was what the last data indicated. Again, extremely low atmospheric pressure if you compare that to pressure on Earth, with for us, nominal pressures are somewhere around 790 millibars. So really low atmospheric pressure there maintained on Mars. Now, the wind is still blowing out of the east, and this is about the same data that was taken 7 days ago. Winds are out of the east, 4.5 miles per hour, so that's steady.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said, we're just going to pick up from where we left off last week. JPL at that time was preparing to test Curiosity's robotic arm. So just for a moment, I'm going to focus on the robotic arm and give a brief description of its features. Curiosity's arm mimics a human arm. A human arm, like a human arm. It has 3 joints, shoulder, elbow, wrist. At the end of the arm is a turret, a hand-like structure on which 5 devices are mounted. 2 of these are science instruments: the Alpha Particle X-ray Spectrometer, APXS for short, and the Mars Hand Lens Imager, and they call that MOLLY. The remaining 3 are for sample acquisition and sample preparation functions. They consist of a percussion drill, a brush, and mechanisms for scooping, sieving, and portioning samples of powdered rock and soil. Curiosity's robotic arm allows for precision placement of these devices over a chosen sample. JPL tested the robotic arm in conjunction with MOLLY, using MOLLY to photograph the robotic arm in various positions. Also, this marked the first time that MOLLY imaged with its reclosable dust cover open, in fact confirming sharp imaging capability. Previously, that dust cover had been left in the closed positions, and the photographs that was obtained from that particular position, they came out foggy in appearance, and that was because there's a thin layer of dust that has accumulated over that cover over the time that Curiosity's been on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity has not only been checking the function of its robotic arm assembly, it's also been doing what engineers call characterizations also about other parts of the rover itself. We're going to just talk about one of those. Mastcam stands out this week. It was directed to transit of a Martian moon, Phobos, as it moves across the lower portion of the sun. Other opportunities for imaging Phobos as well as Deimos transits that they'll make their move across the sun later on, and that'll be spread over several days and beyond, and we should be able to get some really neat imaging from that. Oh, and by the way, if you guys actually want to see these images and everything I'm talking about here, you can get out to NASA.gov or the JPL website. They all have links to each other, and you can see the movies, you can see the images. They're quite interesting.
Yeah, Ed, why don't you link those and post them to the Pink Atheist podcast group so that everybody that's listening can see them there?
Sure, I can do that.
Great.
Just one more word though on Phobos and also Deimos. We'll start with Phobos first. Phobos is in an orbit that is gradually spiraling inwards, drawing about 1.8 meters closer to the planet each century. Get that. Within 50 million years, it's said that Phobos will either crash into Mars or it'll break up and form a thin ring around the planet. Deimos, on the other hand, is spiraling outward away from Mars, eventually leaving orbit, never to be seen again. That's the speculation on that. I'm going to go back to some of the science instruments on the turret at the end of Curiosity's arm, and the first one's going to be the APXS. Initially, there was concern about that. When it landed, they were worried about excessive debris on the instrument, which is the alpha particle X-ray spectrometer. They used a Mastcam to image the turret, or a hand assembly, if you will, and it was determined that no structural damage with the APXS instrument happened. The APXS is a contact instrument that would be placed directly on a sample for analysis. The alpha particle X-ray spectrometer completed a reading of chemical ingredients in the instrument's calibration target mounted on Curiosity's body and successfully identified the composition of the calibration target that lines up with the measurements made during pre-flight testing on Earth. APXS has also detected two elements that are not part of the calibration sample, and those elements being sulfur and chlorine. These two peaks in the X-ray count are related to the dust that's on the calibration target, which developed there over a period of time the same way it did on that dust cover for Molly. The instrument team, they're very happy. I bet they are. And they're saying that APXS is fully functional and able to acquire accurate readings both during Martian nights and days. Moving on from there, the robotic arm was placed above the sample inlets for the SAM and Kimin instruments to ensure the positioning was correct. Now, what's that about is the SAM and Kimin are the actual laboratory instruments that is located inside the body of Curiosity, and there's two outlets located on Curiosity's deck that can open and close. They wanted to make sure that the robotic arm was in the correct position so they could, let's say, scoop a sample up, position it over one or both of these inlets, and deposit the correct amount of sample for these onboard laboratories to be able to analyze. They also did what's called a preloaded organic check material, and that's located on the front of the rover. And they pushed up against it because when they say contact, these instruments get pushed right up against these samples. It could be a rock, it could be the ground, whatever. The force here, they say, is about 115 newtons. They left it in this pressed position against the sample overnight because they wanted to see if the force was going to vary as the temperature cycled. And you've just heard about those temperatures. They change rather dramatically. And they just wanted to see if there was going to be some difference between the force during the day and as the temperature dropped off on a Martian night. They wanted to see if that changed. The organic material is located inside sealed compartments, again on the front of the rover, that can be used to calibrate material for the SAM instrument. The arm was left in that configuration overnight, of course, just to complete that part of the testing. Testing wrapped up as the robotic arm used to touch a observational tray that's on the rover with the MOLLE contact sensors in 2 different positions. And they did that so they could make sure that this contact science worked on scooped or drilled samples. They completed that. The rover drivers then took over, and Curiosity was back on the move. Upcoming sols or days will be just driving from point A to point B. Curiosity will continue its drive towards an area called Glenegg. That's an area we talked about last week, which has 3 different geological features that come together. Along the way, if they find a decent-sized rock, the science team will take over, and they will start their first contact science session of the mission. And if they do stop, that's going to take several days.
Yeah.
They want to that's I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did you have anything else to talk about on it? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, am I running out of time? Jeez, I thought it was under 10 minutes on this. Okay, just quickly, there's a controversy brewing about the percussion drill on the that was on the rover's turret. The drill bits were removed from their sterilized container early, and this is before, of course, before the launch. And now they're saying that if they run up into any kind of, let's say, frozen water or ice, of course, that there's a possibility that there are microbes on those drill bits, and you could potentially contaminate the sample. Right now, however, that's a non-issue because Curiosity has just finished its engineering phase and is now moving towards its science phase. And that's it for me till next week. Back to you, Rachel and Jim.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Ed, for that update.
No problem.
All right, Rachel, let's move into our news. And for today's news, you're going to take over because you wanted to talk about the issues in Libya. If you'll take over with that.
The thing that I wanted to talk about was the news on the Muslim riots in Libya. I will be posting the video just so everybody knows after the show of the video that caused all of this rioting. And I just want to say that I hope this time that the Muslims don't get a pass on this whole rioting and murdering of U.S. officials that were in an embassy working. I think it's absolutely absurd that every few years when somebody publishes a cartoon, a video, something that's so offensive to them, that they take to the street, they get away with murder and this chaos and this demonstrations that are absolutely horrific, and nothing happens, and the world gives in to them, and we take down videos, and we stop shows, and we stop producing cartoons. And I really think that Islam needs to learn to take it on the chin. We're not Muslim, and we don't have to bow to them, and that seems to be exactly what they want. The point of their whole demonstrations is that the world has to give in to Islam because it says so. And, you know, on a daily basis we insult Christianity, we insult other religions, and we do that with the same vigor that we insult Muslims, and they can't take it. Laws change after they get upset because they go out and kill people. And I don't think that we need to give in to extremism. I think that we need to fight against it, because if not, it's only going to get worse. So I was really angry when I heard about the killings, because these were innocent Americans who had nothing to do with this film. And once you see the film, you'll say, it's not even something professionally produced. It's a backyard video that is badly produced and is kind of funny and not overly insulting, just insulting enough to obviously incite rioting. But it's not worth what they did to Americans who had nothing to do with it. And I think that the consequences need to show, and I think that America needs to take time to stand up and say, we're not going to allow you to kill our people. We're not going to allow you to abuse our freedom of speech. And personally, for the last few days, I've faced a lot of Muslim outrage in my direction, and I've been called quite a few horrendous names, which I can handle. But it seems to be that they have the right to insult us, to use their freedom of speech to abuse us, but we don't have the right to use our freedom of speech to insult their prophet. And it's absolutely ridiculous, and I refuse to give in to that. And I think that more people need to be outraged by what's going on in the Middle East. So that's what I have to say.
Well said. I will say this, and I admire Bill Maher tremendously. However, Bill Maher on his show last Friday night was obviously talking about this same subject, and he showed some photos of people holding up signs that say, this doesn't represent all of us. These riots were not from the entire Muslim community. Basically, there were some people who were against the protest who, otherwise you would have thought would have been with it. I would still say, though, that is those people that are supporting the religion but not the damage that it's doing are still perpetuating the problem. And sitting back and it's like your monotone Christians that don't have a big voice. They're still perpetuating the Christianity, and so they are part of it, in my opinion. I don't accuse any of them from it.
Well, and I agree with that, because I think when religion gets together, it does horrible things. We've seen that time and time again. The more influence it has, whether it be societal or political or whatever it is, the more power that they tend to get, the more corrupt and more necrotic they become to society. And I think that that's what Islam really wants. I mean, we see them say this is a religion of peace, and then their peace winds up being protests and murders and beheadings and hangings and rapings and stonings. And this is not peace. This is absolutely terror, and I don't think that our society needs to give in to that. And I've often heard Muslims say someday, their flag will fly from the White House. And while I'm not totally terrified by this idea, I definitely don't want to give them the idea that it could ever happen, that we're a nation that will surrender to the whims of terrorist organizations.
No. All right, and do we want to get on to our next topic?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to talk.
Go ahead.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the LGBT movement, and for that, we've got a couple of guests on hold that are going to discuss that with us. We should have Mitchell, Shannon, and Jack. Are you all there?
Yep. I'm here.
Howdy.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
I
Thank
will
you.
ask this: if anybody's got us on speakerphone, please take us off speaker because we're getting a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of feedback.
Yeah, you're not on speaker with me.
Okay.
No, you're not on speakerphone here.
Okay. So what we're going to do is maybe we should just put one on at a time and let them speak.
All right. I'm going to mute a couple of you out for a second. And we should have Jack on the line. Jack, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Okay. Hi, Jack.
Am I the person with the feedback, perhaps?
I think it was you. Yes.
It did sound like it seems to have went away.
How does this sound? Oh, okay, good.
Much better. I'm gonna bring everybody else back on and see if we can't do this the right way. Mitchell and Shannon, are you back?
I'm here.
Yay,
right,
it's so much better.
Yeah, sounds much better. Shame on you, Jack. That was all you.
Oh, I had on a headset. Apparently it was my headset. My apologies.
Yeah, the system sometimes has a little bit of problem with headphones. Sorry about that.
No worries. I'm sorry to have caused the problem.
All right, so today I wanted to talk about equality and the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender community, and that's why I invited you guys all on it. Thank you so much for being here. I think you're all amazing people, and I know that life is a little bit different, and especially with the lack of equality and rights as far as the state goes. So I wanted you all to talk about a little bit about what your life is like and some of the things that you've seen, some of the discrimination and problems, if you would.
Hey, I guess I'll go first. I actually just moved to New York, just kind of escape the Bible Belt, because at least in New York, it is as far as job discrimination and all. New York has its own laws for marriage equality and all that, but thanks to the federal laws, we still are not equal, even in a state that has done everything it can to make us equal. But the environment's a lot better. I mean, I was beat up twice in South Carolina. Once was pretty bad. I had my skull cracked.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was in 2004. My then girlfriend wound up in a coma for 22 days, and the guys that did it got up in court and said they were doing God's work. I've pretty much seen it all. I went to conversion therapy and all that, and Rachel, you already know about all that. And it's very, it's psychologically abusive, it's physically abusive. And finally, I had a wonderful friend who was like, I know you want to get out of that area of the country. It's not safe for you there. I had a pretty homophobic family, so, I came on up. It's a lot of discrimination on a daily basis. I actually joined the membership committee of the LGBTQ Center here in Hudson Valley, and I have one of my new friends here is a trans woman who has not been able to find a job in 6 years because nobody will hire her. Yes, she has not had a job in 6 years since she transitioned.
That is sad, and that's tragic that happens in America, where we're supposed to be civilized.
It is. We are supposed to be civilized. Like, even just walking down the street. I mean, she was, she's pretty tall, probably about 6 feet tall, and like we even get stares just walking down the street in like the artsy district and all. Like, it's really sad. Even in probably one of the most liberal states in the union, people still stare at her. People still, still treat her differently. And even though they can't say that they're not hiring her because she is transgender, it's certainly, there have been indications that that's why she can't find a job,
Yeah, and that's pretty tragic because that harms a person's self-esteem as well as, their life.
Mhm. And she's barely making it paycheck. She's paycheck to paycheck right now. Like, she's literally not being able to save anything because she's on, like, state assistance.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is a different world, I guess, to be LGBT. But I would say that, if you're looking for who has it the worst, I would say the T and LGBT has it the worst. At least I can find a job. If I eventually wind up getting fired because somebody finds out something about my life or somebody sees a photo or something that they don't like, at least people aren't turning me away from, like, being hired just for being gay. But they did in the South, which is why I came here.
Yeah, and that must make life terribly difficult to have to worry about moving and not being able to get a job simply because of who you are.
It's just scary because, money makes the world go round. And if you're kind of like me, I can be pretty obvious about it without even meaning to. They're going to find out, even if they, or at least suspect, even if I try to be ambiguous about it. Which I shouldn't have to be, but I have enough common sense to realize that, I need a job and I need my money and, stuff like that. But I think probably any LGBT person in America will be like, we are very hyper aware of the inequalities, and sometimes we have to act accordingly.
Yeah, I'm sure. Wow.
Yeah,
we do have...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say we have Mitchell on the line as well, and you mentioned the T in the movement. And I think that should probably lead in just for a second to Mitchell. Would you like to speak up?
Well, yeah, it's it is not there. I don't know that there is a state in the union. There may be a couple that have state level. You cannot discriminate against trans people, but for the most part, without completely, talking out of my rear end, I would say, every state has places where you can be denied job or housing strictly because you are gender variant, because you are transgender or and thankfully with the Affordable Care Act, legally doctors can no longer say they're not going to treat us. Say we go to the hospital because we've got a broken leg, whereas before they could say, you know what, take your butt down to the next hospital, we're not going to deal with you. Now they have to. But at the same time, I say, yay, it's a win in our case, in our corner there. And at the same time, now we have to start educating doctors, and we have to really start, this is when the education really has to begin. And sometimes I feel like it's a never-ending battle.
Wow, yeah.
I've been the only one time, thankfully, have I ever had any kind of discrimination, and that was on a job. I was up for a promotion. My immediate supervisor knew that I was trans. Her supervisor, who was a very religious woman, did not. And my supervisor outed me to her supervisor, and I didn't have a job long after that.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
It happens, I was very angry about it for a long time, but I moved on to bigger and better things, so, I'm all right with it now.
Yeah. And it's good that there were bigger and better things for you, because I would hate to think of somebody like your friend who is just being rejected and turned down because of who they are. It's such hypocrisy on the part of religion, because they talk about this love and acceptance and Jesus and all of that, and then you see what they do in reality is they live in corners and fear, and they spread that, and then they discriminate and they promote hate. And that's really the problem that I have with religion.
I couldn't agree more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I say it's, growing up in a fundamentalist family in the Bible Belt, what I do these days is from dating on out, I stay as far away from, people who hold deep, deep faith on, a fundamentalist level as possible, specifically, Pentecostal, Southern Baptist, the real fundamentalist sects like that. They don't want anything to do with people like us. In fact, it's a safety issue. They will do us harm.
Yeah.
Right. And Jack, do you want to chime in here a bit?
All right. Yeah, I'm probably an odder guy out. I've been raised in the South, left the South, and now find myself back far, far south. So it's been an interesting ride. I have lived in much more accepting places. I lived in a very small coal mining town, and I grew up with a lot of difficulty, a lot of depression that comes along with just trying to justify, okay, I'm different. I know I'm different. Apparently, this different can really get you hurt. And I ended up married for 10 years. So that was a long and difficult 10 years in many ways, not just for me, but also for my ex-wife. After coming out, of course, it was a real realization. I think I have a window into something that a lot of folk out there may not understand as clearly as they might if they've been out all their lives, just how deep the lack of rights actually reaches. You don't realize what you don't have until it's taken, what you have, rather, until it is taken away from you. And the very thought after, living a chunk of my adult life that somebody could reach into my life and say, no, you can't. Or no, you're not as good as we are. that it's deeply offensive. It's actually a kind of like mental friction that goes on all the time. So it's I don't know, subtle in many ways and overt in others. Particularly the further south you get, definitely into the Bible Belt. It sounds like the other gentleman definitely with the beating up. My goodness, that fortunately has not happened to me.
And we're all thankful for that, because there needs to be less beating up and hurting of people who are gay. And I think that society needs to understand homosexuality more. And, studying biology and understanding the physiology of people, I realized that I've talked to a lot of people who said, at 5 years old, I knew that I was gay. I knew that I didn't like, girls or guys. I knew that that wasn't what I wanted. And I've always said to people, a 5-year-old can't make a sexual choice. They're not, they're not cognizant of their sexual orientation as far as that goes, as what I should like, what I should do. So when you see that behavior in a small child, you know that must be something that is either biologically set with them or chemically set with them. So I think that people need to be more understanding, and it's hideous that we have people being beaten up or killed or hurt because they're gay.
No,
yeah, it is hideous. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was raised in a house with 3 brothers, and my parents adopted me because they wanted a girl. Oops. And so I remember being very young, being like, 3, 4, 5 years old, and seeing my brothers out running around in the summertime just wearing their swim trunks. I wanted to be able to do the same thing. Gender stereotypes were strictly enforced in my house, so I had to go out wearing a little, one-piece bathing suit or, a little bikini top or whatever, and I never understood why until I got older. Why I wasn't allowed to wear, jerseys or, things along those lines. And it ended up, between my brothers and I, it did cause a lot of physical altercations because I was so weird and so different from them. So a lot of the negativity that I experienced came from my family. It wasn't from outside forces. When I finally came out, I found my own support system and didn't really look back.
That is great. And it's tragic that you had to have that in your own home because, that's the place that we look for comfort and acceptance the most.
Absolutely.
Something else that bothers me is that the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movements aren't coming together more. Like you have the religious people with Soul Force and Believe Out Loud and all that. Why, I don't know, I guess that's always something, because atheists and LGBT people should be almost automatic allies.
Mm-hmm.
I think
in on that one. Yeah, sorry, Jim.
No, I was going to say I totally agree with that one. I'm heterosexual, male, white male, so I'm in the I guess the golden era, if you will, with it. But yet I try my best to help out, and it is because I'm an atheist, and I realize that our struggles are not the same, but equal in that we're looking for rights.
Mhm. Yeah, I was wondering why, because I know there was the Washington Marriage Equality Group who distanced themselves from the atheists that donated money to them when they were pushing to get that ballot measure removed to ban same-sex marriage in Washington. And I don't know why. Nobody knows why. They never gave a concrete answer. But I think there might be some friction between two movements. I don't know why, if there is, because I've been a member of both, but I'm rather new to open atheism. But I've been, trying to kind of get into the sector onto a more professional level, and I haven't seen any connection between the two, and I find that odd.
Well, they're not exclusive. I mean, and I hate to say this, you can be an atheist and actually, hate the LGBT movement. That's possible. It's not common, but it is possible. So they're not exclusive. So I understand possibly why the two don't have intermingling conventions or what have you. But yet as people, I think you do find more support from the atheist movement than you would from, obviously, from any Christian movement. That goes without saying.
Mm-hmm. That's why I don't understand why groups like Soul Force and Believe Out Loud are getting so much attention. and there doesn't even seem to be an LGBT atheist group like this, like in an official 501c3 nonprofit like Believe Out Loud and so forth. Which, I mean, as far as if religious groups go, they are doing good work and all that, but I also think it's wasted because they really think they're going to convince the fundies that like they need to be accepting of gay people and trans people and bi people. It's not going to happen. Their beliefs tell them otherwise.
Well, we still have Phil on the line. That was something Phil was talking about when we had him, and he is still on the line.
Okay.
Some of our people that are in the movement, are like Phil, are really for having multiple groups and having as many the more the merrier, as he said. And so, no one's stopping any one individual, like yourself, from starting that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may take you a while to get it off the ground, and I'm sure Phil could probably help you with that. I mean, as far as how to get things started,
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps you're onto something, and you should do that.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it, because, I just relocated. I don't even have a full-time job yet here. I just have my internet work, so this would be kind of a prime time if I really wanted to at least seek the information, if you will, to do that, because I don't know anything about starting a nonprofit, I'll be honest. Especially one that essentially,
Right, and Phil may not be able to give you all that information, but I brought him back on. Phil, are you there?
I am.
All right. You want to comment on that?
Well, I'm not a real big expert on starting an organization, and a 501c3 only takes a couple hours of an attorney's work and will set you back about $800 to $1,200, depending on where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But you probably want to have several friends that go in with you, because starting something by yourself will take all your time and energy, and it just makes it a lot harder to do.
Yeah. It was just something I've always been curious about, because I belong to a normal, American Atheist. I belong to a plethora of LGBT rights organizations. I've been doing that for about 13 years, actually. And I'm on a membership committee of an LGBT center here that I just joined. So, it's like I'm no stranger to working in that arena, but it's just it's always struck me as odd. Like, why do we have all these religious gay groups, but
Yeah, that has always surprised me. I understand why most atheists support individual rights and groups that you're talking about, but I'm surprised that it doesn't always go the other way around. And starting a new charity organization that's a subgroup of a subgroup might be more daunting than one would hope.
Mhm. Gotcha. Yeah, it's just something I've always wondered about, because I was thinking maybe even just a board with an LGBT board within an atheist organization, or an atheist board within an LGBT organization, or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that the support is growing for the gay community. I just think it's going to take time, because, once people shed their dogma, they have to get past all of those old prejudices, and we have to teach minds to be more effective and more open, and it just doesn't happen, overnight. I mean, the atheist movement has grown a lot, and I think that support for the gay community is going to grow too, and like Jimmy and I, we stand beside you guys wholeheartedly, and I love all of my gay friends. They're wonderful people, and I would do anything in the world that I could for them.
Yay. and well said. I mirror that, Rachel. That's a good statement. And again, being heterosexual, I have no real stance on the issue. I will help out as much as possible. That's the best I can do. And if I can help you out starting a group, I'll do what I can.
Okay, sounds good.
And I know is Shannon still sitting on the line with us?
I'm right here.
Hi, Shannon. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. I've been talking all this whole time. I don't think I ever properly introduced myself. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
but
okay.
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
I wanted to give you a chance to talk. The other guys have gotten their opportunity, so.
No, I talked. That was me talking. I have a very deep voice.
Oh.
That was me talking.
Okay.
But talking about the nonprofit and all that. I didn't introduce myself. I apologize.
But that's fine, sweetie. It's fine.
But yeah, I was just wondering about that. That is something that has always kind of bothered me, because I'm like, I always get like letters and stuff from Soul Force and Believe Out Loud, and I'm not a religious person, and I don't like religion at all, so I don't feel like I belong in those arenas at all. Pro-gay or not, that's just is still promoting, the Bible and all that is truth, and I just don't think it's a good thing.
No, and I would agree with you there. Why sell yourself out to religion just to have a community to stand behind you? I mean, I think that it would be more wonderful if the atheist community, and I think they will come along to embrace the gay community. I think we just all have to learn to unite. And it is hard because, I have other gay friends. They're a lesbian couple, and they're wonderful women, but they both go to church every Sunday. And I said to them, how can you do this? How can you go to church every Sunday and thank a God who, has verses that says you should be condemned? And they told me, no, well, that's not the God that they believe in. And I think that that's a scapegoat for a lot of people, that they pick and choose, they cherry pick what they're going to believe, and then they allow themselves to believe the same dogma. And I'm of the mind that if something is going to, push to destroy you, you should probably push back so that it doesn't. And that's
a whole lot of like this friend that I was talking about from the center. She is devoutly Christian, and we actually got into it a little bit in the women's group on Friday night, because we're all atheists. She is the only non-atheist that goes to women's group, and I was just like, really? And she was like, well, I've been rejected by about 14 churches, but I finally found one that'll let me come. And I'm like, you're begging this religion to? I mean, I don't understand it. It was pretty depressing to listen to. How she's been rejected by all these churches, and that's depressing to me.
and that's what gets me. Like, I have a best friend who her church said that as long as her and her, at the time they were fiancé, were living together, that they didn't want her at the church because they didn't want them setting that example. And then you have other people that, as long as the church knows that you're gay and you're actively gay, which means that you're having a relationship, they don't want you to come. And it's like, how can you be non-actively gay? And how should you have to hate yourself inside every week when you go to church and then feel like you're supposedly part of this community? I think it's absolutely absurd.
It is, and there's a lot of gay people. That's why I stopped dating theists. Like, I think actually I had told you about this at one point. Like, the girl who I was dating was very self-hating and saying, well, we can find somewhere where they'll accept us. I'm like, I'm not going to go hunting around for some church to worship some deity I don't believe in. This is just ridiculous. That's when I stopped. I stopped at I don't know any gay theists who are self-accepting. I don't know any of them. It's a lifelong struggle.
Yeah, and I find that the amount of self-loathing that you have to go through to be religious is horrendous. I mean, the idea of being born and being wicked and then growing up and being wicked and everything you do is wicked, and then trying to appease this monster who's constantly watching you and be good enough for him is just too much. And I really don't buy into all the absurdities of religion. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be homosexual and have to go through that, because that's like a ton more of self-loathing piled upon you. And it's just ridiculous that people buy into that.
Well, my mom said to me, that she wants to see me in heaven someday, and I said, well, I love you, Mom, but I don't think I'm going to be in some place I don't believe exists.
Phil here again. I spent 5 years earlier in my life on pretending to be a Missouri Synod Lutheran, and 3 years on the Lutheran School Board, 2 years as the treasurer, and I helped prevent the school from going bankrupt. So I have a lot to make up for. But I was always amazed with this philosophy of, as long as you're not practicing gay, as long as you're not actually living your life, But people who drink, which was you're not supposed to do, or people who gambled, or people who cheated on their spouses, they were allowed to stay. They were allowed to keep coming back. Well, what makes being gay that much worse? I could never get over that hypocrisy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm going
here.
We get 6 people on the line, and this is going to happen.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I finished my thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Like, we were all at once, so it happened.
Yeah.
I did want to say, yeah, there is a lot of hypocrisy, and the problem is that so many people buy into it, and they can quote you the Bible verse that tells you that homosexuality is wrong, but they can't quote you the one that tells you shouldn't be eating pork or wearing mixed clothes or working on Sunday without getting stoned. So they can quote all of this hate and dogma at you that, you know, separates us and makes gay people feel like they should hate themselves, but they can't quote any of their own ridiculous material. And I just have so many problems with religion, and one of them is the fact that they stand against the gay community, because I feel like any people that are so oppressed and so downtrodden from what religion does really need some help up, because religion has been nothing but toxic poison to society since it was invented.
Yes,
amen.
And I'm not opposed to people getting stoned on Sunday either.
Just the other kind.
You know, South Carolina still has it on the books that a man on Sunday can beat his wife on the State House steps with a rod no wider than his thumb. So.
Yes, the old rule of thumb. Yeah, the rule of thumb.
That's where the rule of thumb. Yeah, and it's still on the books. And when they were removing old ridiculous laws, they refused to remove that one.
Do they have a law that says the wife can beat the man 6 other days of the week in the house? Because that would make it fair.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, well, you're talking about a state that has a Confederate flag on the State House. So, I mean, it's not unsurprising. It was just so disgusting. I couldn't live there anymore. It was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
It was.
That's way too much bigotry for my taste.
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised there. I miss my grandparents and all, but I'm so much happier in New York. They're like, Shannon, come home, and I'm just like, I'm so much happier in New York. I am.
Yeah, and I've been to New York. It's a beautiful place. It's so huge and so tremendous, and at least they don't have the Confederate flag flying and people thinking that some deity floated down from the sky and made everything with one poof.
Yeah.
So
even the religious people here are like innocuous about it. You don't see street preachers running around and whatnot. You know, it's not like that here. People like that would be beat up. Like they would not tolerate that.
Well, yeah. I don't wish for anybody to really get beat up, but
no.
It's like absurd amounts of religion in the South. It's like you can't get away from it. It's so toxic everywhere.
Well, no, you can't even buy it in the town. You can't even buy. Go ahead.
Well, I was about to say I'm living in the deep, deep South. I'm down on the Gulf Coast.
Oh wow!
I do work with a lot of small governments. There is no meeting I go to that prayer does not start, and we are talking about city business. There is no committee that does not meet that doesn't have at least one minister on it. This is something impressive. I have seen ministers coming and going from city halls wherein they have given advice or counseled people or mayors. It's insanely pervasive. There is very much what I used to see in my own old church a long time ago, which was an attempt to control people. Everybody's got to be like me, and it's more pervasive than you might think the farther out you go. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
sorry, I
sad.
didn't mean to bring it all the way down.
No, that's how that is. You're right. That's how it is. My mother's a school teacher, and of course she's a fundamentalist and has no problem with it. But they start school board meetings, football games, basketball games with a prayer, and I know that's illegal. That's a violation of the Establishment Clause.
Yes. Don't mention it though. I mentioned it just one time. City was holding the National Day of Prayer event in the city council chambers. Many ministers, all of them Christian, no other religions involved. And my mention of the event and the fact that it was indeed breaking the Establishment Clause was met with a lot of scorn and not a little bit of anger. I swear I probably could have gotten bigger smiles from stepping on babies. So it was a grim situation in which I kind of got concerned that oh boy, I bet I lost this one.
Yeah, for me living in Mobile, Alabama, it is horrible here. The religious right is just horrible. Everywhere you go, there's billboards, Christian billboards. There's a church not far from me that has a fountain in front of it that sprays up about 20 feet tall, and it has these large red lights that shine in it. So at night when you drive by, it looks like blood spewing out of the ground. That's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
That's so morbid.
Yeah. Well, that's happy to them. They're absolutely happy to see that.
Well, and I think that when you guys are talking about this, Jack and Jimmy, it's so amazing that they have infringed so much. And this is what I was saying earlier about religion. If you give a little, it takes a lot. And then next thing you know, we're all immersed in it, whether we want to be or not. And that's why separation of state and church exists. And you have small towns like that, and speaking out is sometimes absolutely dangerous to your life.
Yeah, trust me, yes.
Well, the thing is, Mobile's not that small of a town. It's actually a pretty large town. And even with its mass numbers, it's still extremely Christian.
Mhm. Yeah. It doesn't matter the size of the towns down there, because the town I was living in, Rock Hill, was about 70,000 people. It was just that they were all religious, and if you dared to speak out, that was it. You better not. Just like they threatened the American Atheists that had the signs of the billboards up in Charlotte. That's about 20 minutes from where I was. And they threatened these people.
Wow. And that shows, and we all know, I'm from Ohio, so I'm a northern girl, and we all know the power and influence that the Bible Belt has. Some of the televangelists that are absolutely insanely rich and popular, especially are from the South, because they know that where there's religion, there's money. And it's a good racket. It's made them millions. And so they have
all right, now, Rod Parsley. The World Harvest Church, Columbus, Ohio.
And it amazes me how much influence that the Bible has in that area, and these people are insanely zealous over this. They think that every word of the Bible is true, that poof, there was Adam and Eve, and there are demons and angels and miracles and all of this, and they buy it. And they're some of the worst hypocrites and some of the most hate-filled people that you could ever meet.
Yeah, and they believe blood spews out of the ground apparently close to me.
Maybe Jesus is hidden under that.
I have no clue, but it's an interesting sight to drive by that church. I'll take a picture of it one day and post it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And somebody just said it always comes down to money, and you're right. It always does come down to money, and the more money they can get, and I want to say this. It's amazing to me because I've seen older people who will give their last dollar to a church that's got millions of dollars, and they sit there and they build a stage. And here in Ohio, we have the Trinity Broadcasting Network that when they were first small, you know, everybody was in this little stage, and then they got huge because people gave them their last dollars. And they built this big golden stage with these golden crosses, and were wearing all this jewelry and looking so fine. And they don't care about the people who gave their last dollars, you know, for food and gas and bills to them to pay for this big set that is absolutely horrendous and make these people nothing but millionaires.
Yeah. And to make the church itself a millionaire, and it's not necessarily always the person. They do their ministries, if you will, where they, you know, will go out and go overseas, whatever, and they think that's noble. But every single time they do that, it's padded with, here's a Bible before I give you food. Their ministries are nowhere near what a secular ministry would do, to me.
Yeah. Well, and 90% of it goes to pay for the preacher, the church, his mansion, his whatever, and then like 10%, if that, goes to buying Bibles and a little bit of food for the poor. And so the blessing is actually on them because they can trick poor people into making them millionaires.
Yeah, and I'm sure that fountain wasn't cheap either. That's probably a pretty expensive fountain they've got up there.
When I moved up here to go to Kent State, one of the things that appalled me was I was driving up the highway and I realized that this huge 2-story building wasn't a factory, it was a church. And, I mean, they have a parking lot that is enormous. And there's 2 stories on this building, glass windows. It's just decked out, and this is a church. And, you know, I think of all the starving children in the world, and I think it's amazing. You think you need that kind of space for a church, but you don't think you need that kind of money to take care of starving people, AIDS, disease, all of that.
You know, even if they just paid taxes on those dwellings, it might start to chip away at some things, you know, at least here in the U.S. But, you know, them having to pay taxes on anything, you know, no, that's never going to happen.
Right. Somebody just commented on that about the Mormon corporations and how they pay no taxes. And also, we you know, in that I've mentioned the Mormon Mall that they've got, where an entire mall is set up for profit that pays no taxes.
Yeah, and that's a huge oversight on the part of the government. I don't know why a church gets a tax-free status versus anything else. I think that they should be paying their fair share. I mean, they want to exist here. They're basically a business. Their business is selling people heaven, and, you know, they sell it to them well. So if they're going to make a business out of this and get the profit, I think that they should definitely be paying taxes. I don't think any kind of religion should be exempt from that. I think that everybody should do their fair share, and especially when you see these guys living in huge mansions and, you know, having several cars and limos and all of that. That's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's really pretty disgusting. I mean, it's just like, you know, like Pat Robertson. He has like 3 mansions and like 6 cars. Mitt Romney is a bishop in the Mormon church, so shouldn't he not be a politician as well?
I certainly agree with that. He shouldn't be a politician.
Apparently, he doesn't know the difference between separation of church and state because everything he does is religious and religiously motivated.
They even posthumously baptized Barack Obama's dead mother. The woman was an atheist. Same with his wife's father. I mean, that's disgusting.
Well, you know,
it was his wife's dead father that he baptized. I'm not sure about the Obama on that. You may be right on that too. It's some of his family, but no, it was his wife's mother that he baptized, or father, I'm sorry, that he baptized, who was an atheist scientist, and he decided that it was his turn to baptize this dead person.
Well, and like Bill Maher said, we should start baptizing people atheists. You know, just go to random graves. You're now an atheist. See how that works. See if the dead give a damn. Bill Maher also unbaptized Mrs. Romney's father. Yeah. And it's just so absurd. Like, you think that suddenly they're just going to appear on a magic planet somewhere out in space and have it for themselves. Okay.
Well, it doesn't sound any goofier to me than any other religion, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
they're all goofy.
absurd.
I just think that it's really, really strange to baptize dead people. That goes even beyond anything I've heard from any other religion. That's really strange.
Yeah, we all think it's really strange, and I think that the religious people really don't understand how strange it is unless you're outside looking in, and then you go, that's almost insanity. And, you know, it was interesting because I took a sociology class, and our professor was teaching us the difference between a religion and a cult is the number of members. So I guess the difference is if you have 25 members, you're a cult. If you have 2,000 members, you're a church. So you can start any insane idea you want. At first you'll be considered a cult, but you get enough members and society will start calling you a church. So
pretty much, because Mormonism was a cult considered a cult in the days of Joseph Smith, but now look at it now. It's like an acceptable religion, and I don't understand it.
Well, you know, we don't understand a lot of things. Magic underwear, looking at magic tablets that appear in a hat to you only, you know, and you can only read them with special whatever. I don't like the Mormon religion almost as much as I don't like Islam. I mean, Christianity has its downfalls, but some of the people can definitely be a little bit more sane and tolerable. But Mormonism just is, and it's so weird that people follow these things, like knowing that it's probably the most false premise, like Scientology, to invent a religion over. That was nothing more than a fiction book, and it became a religion.
Yeah, L. Ron Hubbard was into Dianetics and whatnot.
Mhm. And he didn't. I mean, his intent wasn't to start a religion. He just wrote a book, and it was a fiction book. And then, of course, he, you know, went a little nuts. But now you look and you have stars who are paying thousands of dollars and believing this. And yeah, a lot of them are just cults with, you know, a lot more members.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now that we've gotten completely off topic,
it is going good, though.
Yeah. I love to bash religion any chance that I get. I'm a 100% give it to religion kind of girl. So for me, that makes sense. But I did have you guys on. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to say about, you know, how life is for you and anything that you would like to see changed in your lifetime?
What I would like to see changed is the federal stuff. Like I said, like I grew up in a fundamentalist home and a fundamentalist state. If the federal government, and of course this is speaking from America, I guess everybody here is from America, but it's speaking from, you know, the standpoint of we are not going to achieve true equality until the federal government steps in. States like Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, they are not going to do it on their own. They will keep holding ballot initiatives to, you know, as nothing but lip service. Of course they know that those red states are going to vote against anything for gay people, you know, or for LGBT people. And further, also, I think I would like to see the LGB embrace the T more, because a lot of times a lot of stuff that we push for doesn't include the T, like the gender acceptance, and I think that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I agree with you there. Go ahead, Jim.
I was gonna ask Mitchell to chime in on that.
Well, you know, I have to agree. Shannon was your name, right? What she said about, you know, just sometimes, you know, being the T, we are kind of thrown under the bus because for one reason or another, the gay movement has made, you know, strides over the last 2 decades, I would say. and we're still kind of creeping along behind them. And I know that I think it was HRC a number of years ago they absolutely refused to put us in any kind of language in with them because they knew that they couldn't get the same kind of political money that they needed to keep going. But at the same time, I hate to say that I understand, because I don't. But I don't know. I just, this whole everybody fend for themselves thing is something that I really hate. And, if we could all just, I don't know, put on a giant bus and go beat some heads, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, Mitchell's right. A lot of times the LGBT in the movement have, we've made enormous strides in it, but sometimes at the expense of the T when it comes to things like, equal treatment in public spaces and things of that nature. I know that a lot of, when we were trying to get the Employment Non-Discrimination Act passed, there's still a lot of, specifically the LGs, who blame the BT for not getting that passed because, a number of people were trying to get gender identity included in the ENDA, and employers weren't going for it because they didn't know how to handle it. But it was more about we should have educated people on just what the issues are instead of being like, well, we can just cut that part out and they'll pass it. I thought that was that was a pretty much, excuse the language, but that was a dick move.
You just said exactly what I was thinking, only much better.
Thank you. I was pretty appalled at that. I was not behind that, in 2010, whenever we were all, really pushing to get the employment non-discrimination at the federal level. I was like, we don't need to do it without gender identity. And they were hurting themselves, too, because while they might not be able to fire me for being gay, they could fire me for being butch. And making people uncomfortable was the language that was used in the times I've had problems at work. That my looks makes people uncomfortable.
And I tend to think of it like transgender. Once you've done the transformation, I tend to think of them like the person that they are, not the person that they quote unquote were. Because to me that makes sense. It's who you felt like, it's who you were, and now you've become that. And so I don't see them. I guess other people must see you that way and feel like and see, I have a friend who was talking about this with me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but once you've done the transformation, you aren't technically gay, right?
Well, I am technically gay because I am a man and I am married to a man.
Okay. And see, that's why I said I don't know all of the differences in it.
I have covered every letter in the spectrum. I was, once I identified as lesbian, then I went to bi, and then it's first, lesbian, and then bi, and then trans, and then gay. And I've been queer the whole time. So, I've encompassed it all at one point or another in my life.
Yeah. And see, I think there's a lot of us out there that don't know the difference. I mean, we know if somebody's a lesbian or that they're homosexual, that they are what they are. But when it comes to transgender, I guess that there are a little bit of different rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are even different rules when it comes to, if you were born male and transitioning to female, or if you were female transitioning to male. As much as I hate it, once I transitioned, if you saw me walking down the street, you would never in a million years guess that I was born a girl. You just wouldn't. Testosterone does amazing things to change our bodies. And now I've met some female to males, some male to females who also walking down the street you'd never know. But I think there are those cases where people say, well, that person doesn't pass well enough for me, so they don't count. They're just a man in a dress, which is not at all who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really, 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 really terrible. Like I was saying, like my like my friend at the center, she does not pass well because she's 63 now, and she didn't transition till age 59, fully at least. Like, she started the hormones 4 years ago, but she had been living as a woman before that. But ever since she started living as a woman, she got fired from the last job she had, and she hasn't been able to get another one. She gets a lot of stares and things like that, because she does, it's clear that she was born male, and she has that makes life incredibly difficult, which is why we need these laws to stop that discrimination,
Yep, exactly. But, that's the kind of woman that I like to, as we're walking down the street, I will grab her hand and hold her hand walking down the street,
Oh, yeah, definitely. I walk with her all the time, and, whenever people are staring, there's been a couple of times that I'll give them you got a problem look, like that, because it's just, I don't want anything to happen to her, because I know that while I'm a target, she's an even bigger target.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's sad that you have to feel that uncomfortable. I really wish society was more accepting, and that goes back to religion. Religion has to get in everybody's bedroom and in their heads and, know what they're doing. And I think that really we definitely need not just separation of church and state, but separation of church and our bodies, because they don't need to dictate to us what is appropriate and what is not. And I definitely think that we need to teach the next generation coming up to be more sensible about people's choices and more open and receptive. And like last year and this year, I have seen so many posts about children that are homosexual committing suicide, and it absolutely breaks my heart to think of that they feel so unaccepted and so unloved in their own lives that they think that the only way out is to commit suicide. And I think we really need to reach out and support these guys coming up, because they need us. They need adults to look to them and say, no, it's okay for you to be this way. This is how you were born, and we accept that, so that we don't have so many children thinking that suicide is a way out.
Yeah, they definitely it would definitely need to separate church and state. It doesn't matter whether or not people understand why people do the things they do, or why, I never asked anybody to understand me as far as those things go, but I do ask them to accept and respect me,
Yeah, and you have every right. I mean, every human being should be respected. I mean, we don't have to always respect people's ideas or their opinions, but we should respect the human being behind it, because they have their right to their life and to enjoy it as they will.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's the problem with religion. It teaches and preaches intolerance, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and I had wrote an article on this, the preacher that was saying that you should punch your boys straight and put your girls in dresses and make them put on makeup to make them straight. And I was absolutely floored by this idea that he would be out there. And, it was one person who leaked what he had said, and there was obviously video of this. But the rest of the congregation stood behind him and said, no, he wasn't saying to actually punch your son and make him straight. But he literally said, give him a punch. And I thought, wow, there's hundreds of people listening to this guy, and he's influencing their minds. What if they do go home and punch their sons? What if they do go home and force that daughter into a dress, and that's not what she wants, and not because she's lesbian, but because she likes to dress like a tomboy? And I just wrote another one the other day saying, what if the gay community said, punch your child gay, or make that girl put on boys' clothes to make her a lesbian? Would that be acceptable for society to get behind? Because you see these preachers teaching this kind of abuse and degradation of human beings that are little kids, and society gets behind them. Well, would you do it if it was the opposite? Would it be okay to beat your kid till it was gay?
Yeah, I mean, that just shows like what hypocrisy they live by. It's just it really does. Like it's okay to try to turn people straight, but not gay. You know, it's just it's insane to try to turn anybody into anything they're not, or even try to turn yourself into something you're not. It's insane, and it's just that's why I really do think that at least some versions of religion, and maybe even all of them to some degree, can be described as, you know, a little bit of insanity if they take it too far.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like Bill Maher says, it can be a form of insanity if you don't use some discretion in your beliefs, you know?
Yeah, and I think that that's what religion brings you to, because when you believe that all of this absurd things are going on around you, behind you, to you, because of the influence of religion, I think that the mind becomes so indoctrinated and so fearful that it can't really rationalize what's really going on around you and what you should really be believing. And I really feel bad for little kids who are being indoctrinated, and I know that in the Muslim religion, by the time that they're 5, all children are supposed to be able to recite Quran, like from the front to the back. And so when you have that type of powerful influence and indoctrination, you really worry what's the future of the world if this is what's going to be happening to children today.
Yeah.
It is what's going to be happening to children. I mean, like, before I left South Carolina, I took my cousin's baby to an amusement park, and the one thing she wanted and cried for, which I refused to buy, was a Sloopy that recited the Lord's Prayer. And she's 2 years old.
Mhm. Wow.
I mean, she is brainwashed.
Yeah. And, you know, I was lucky. I didn't get introduced to religion until I was around 8 years old. And by that time, my mother did it in a tremendously horrible way. So before I ever got to know religion, I got to know nature, and I got to study it. And so obviously the indoctrination didn't work because I went right back to atheism. But, you know, a lot of kids start it as young as a year old and start getting taught to pray and to believe and read the Bible too. And I really feel sorry for those kids because, unfortunately, for some of them, that's all they'll ever know.
Yeah, I mean, they started early because, you know, there's a saying, you know, the preachers say, give them to us until they're 5 and we'll have them for life.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
Little kids are blank slates.
Right. Phil commented on that a bit earlier. Phil commented on that statement a little bit earlier about, I think he said 8. Give me a child until he's 8 and I'll have him for a lifetime, which is quoted by the religious quite a bit.
Yeah.
Actually, it was, I believe, a Jesuit or a Dominican saying. So, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yes, you merged. I apologize.
Oh.
I would like to point out something. You guys are having a tremendous conversation about many of the things that go on, you know, like non-acceptance of transgender people by other genderqueer people, along with just the intolerance that goes along with many religious teachings. A lot of what goes down, in my personal experience, is folks wanting the world to be an easy to parse place. Everything can be expected. Men will be men this way. Women will be women this way. They're looking for black and white answers, whereas biology gives us a lovely rainbow smear. If the gene set works, it gets expressed. And you know, like a little meme, you know, instead of having to do the work of being a tolerant person. And it doesn't just have to be a religious idea. It can be a political one or a philosophical one as well. Which, if it's hard to work out, or if it's something you have to make an effort at, it's much nicer to go along with the heuristic that says, well, not guy, therefore bad. So,
right.
If that made sense to anyone, it just seems to be a much bigger in scope project to me than just the religious side of it. The religious does a lot to work it, but speaking from like growing up in a very straight male culture, the reinforcement of what will be manly and what will not be manly starts at an incredibly young age, and has very little to do with religion right there.
Well, I think that some of it does have to do with religion, but some of it does have to do with cultural understandings. Even being a girl, we're taught boys don't cry, and you're never told why. And even though it's actually emotionally healthy for males to cry, and that's been proven. And I think a lot of the aggression that we see and problems, if you look at the Muslim cultures and societies, you see a lot more hidden counts of rape, incest, beatings, a lot of horrible things. And you see it because I think that there's oppression of human nature. And the more that you try to oppress true human nature, the animal behavior, the more that it actually explodes out in unhealthy ways. And I think that that's why we have a lot of priests raping little boys. Not that I'm condoning that by any means, but anytime you make sex an abnormal thing, you make all sex abnormal. So when all sex is abnormal, what is the most abnormal sex that you can have? Well, that's raping little boys, and that's available to them. So, like I said, I don't condone it, but anytime you demonize something that much, it makes the human mind more curious and more likely to rebel.
I think you're right. And people also need to realize that making something that is perfectly natural into something sinful or unnatural or whatever, it just makes you bottle it up. And it also runs you crazy in other ways. I know, like, all the times I tried to be straight, it was probably the times I was the most mentally ill,
Mhm.
It really does do a number on you. I know, I have PTSD from all of that nonsense to this day, and there'll probably always be a bit of resentment towards my family and towards the churches and all those people because they ruin your life, for a very long time.
Yeah, and I definitely can't imagine trying to absolutely change your whole sexual orientation to suit someone, and that's got to be completely devastating to do because, I can't imagine trying to have sex with someone that, there's absolutely no attraction towards as far as the gender, and trying to convince myself every moment that attraction exists. Just my thoughts.
It is. It's almost like trying to live in like a foreign, like some kind of foreign land or something. Like it's just, you can know all day long it's not normal for you, it's not natural for you, but this is what all these people who you've always looked up to as authority figures are telling you that you must be, and it's just, you'll eventually wind up like a Ted Haggard type. If you look at him and you see how pathetic that situation is, and he doesn't love his wife. Everybody knows he's gay. He was addicted to methamphetamines and all sorts of things. He was caught with men in seedy hotels many times. Things like that. It's just that's the sort of life you will lead if you choose instead of a life of love and happiness, you will lead a life of pain
misery
and denial.
Hidden sex. Yeah, and I agree. And I think that the more normalized we make sex and the more that we talk about it as a society and teach kids that it's a normal, happening, that we are animals and we are part of the animal kingdom and sex is normal, I think that we can change those minds and that future generations can actually be happier. And I think that society as a whole benefits when you have more happy people doing healthy things rather than indoctrinated people doing sick things. So.
Yeah, I mean, look at, like, these preachers. Like, that's just absolutely sick. Like, the priest that just a few weeks ago was caught running down the road after a boy that had been at a sleepover at his house now.
Right. Which,
that in and of itself, strange. He was running, I would never let my child sleep over I mean, really,
Yeah,
I'm waiting till parents are held liable for those type of situations.
Yeah,
if you put your child into a house with a person who's been sexually deprived, of something that they're naturally inclined to do, and you don't expect your child to be touched, then you're the one with the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not normal to abstain from sex. It's not normal to think that sex is wrong, and it's not normal to have an idea that you can be closer, quote-unquote, to a deity if you do abstain from sex. And I think that people need to realize that. And I know the Catholic Church has been talking about it, and the nuns were actually talking about it, and the Pope said, no, absolutely not, we're not changing these rules, because people are tired of the fact that these priests can't have healthy, normal relations, and so they're having absolutely abhorred, abnormal relationships, and they're doing horrendous things to these kids. And, I mean, then you're raising a bunch of kids who are, they've been sexually abused, and then they don't have these boundaries that are healthy. They don't know what healthy relationships are, and so you're raising a generation of damaged kids, and that's not fair to them.
No. I mean, if you look at all the, it's all over the Internet. If you take a look, I'm sure you've seen some of it, the testimonials from people abused in the Catholic Church and how it ruined their lives for decades to come, and there's no going back when something like that happens to you.
No, absolutely not, and it's devastating, and I know some adults have actually spoken out, especially some males that have been through that, and, it was hidden, it was swept under the rug, families have been paid off, priests have been moved so that they have a fresh congregation of children to rape, and it's just insane that they can't think better than that or change their tactics. Instead, all that they do is pay money to these people for that suffering child that, absolutely doesn't understand what happened to them. And that priest moves on to do it to more kids. And it's frightening to think how many people are gullible enough to let their little child alone with an adult male who doesn't think sex is normal. I mean, that to me is absurd.
Yeah, really, because this priest was like 50 years old, and they let a 12-year-old boy spend the night at his house. And they were going to let him, take him on a camping trip. And I was just
my gosh.
Who does that? That's just weird in and of itself.
That's some sort of very weird blind faith that I think some Christians have. That the people in charge can do no wrong.
I think they choose to be blind because they want to love their religion more than they love their children, because any adult who thinks about what that means is not going to let their 12-year-old child stay alone with a priest who's obviously unmarried, has no normal urges. I can't even imagine. Religion is so ridiculous for all of its merits.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get any argument from any of us there.
No, I'm sure I'm not. I'm very sure.
So crazy that who does? I'm just who does that mode with that subject? I'm just whenever I read it on the Huffington Post, and of course all the Fox News adherents descended upon the comment section saying that this is just one in a bunch, and there are many upstanding priests and yada yada. They're mentally godly men and yada yada. And I'm just I know these people are coming out of the woodwork in droves now that we have the internet and it's being posted all over.
Yeah, absolutely. We only have a couple minutes left, so I want to thank all of you for coming on the show today. It's been amazing talking to all of you. It's been a great show, I think. So thank you for coming on with us. Jimmy, do you have anything you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I'd just like to tell everybody thanks again for coming on. And we look forward to next week. We're going to try our best between now and then to get another show lined up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had some wonderful guests. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, Matt and Phil, all of you guys for joining us today. And Ed, thanks for the update on the Mars rover. That's going to do it for the week, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks, everyone.